Yo, what's cracking, everybody? So in today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys a little mindset switch that you need to make if you really want to level up your arrangements. And that one mindset switch is going to be making the beat as interesting as possible without adding vocals. By making your beats with this idea that there's going to be a rapper on it, so it shouldn't be overpowering, it shouldn't be too interesting, you're holding yourself back. Now, I consider myself around an intermediate level producer. I'm not super advanced yet, but I'm definitely out of the beginner phase now. And I'd say that this mindset switch is one of the primary things that leveled me up from a beginner to a more intermediate level producer. So to demonstrate this, I have this beat pulled up right here. This is a song that I'm working on for an upcoming project. You can see down here at the bottom of the song, I started recording a little bit of vocals, but I'm not even going to get into the vocals because they're not the focus of this video. If we just look at the beat, you can see that there is a lot going on here. We have this beat switch later on in the track, and up here, this entire first segment is just loaded with beat cuts, automations, sound effects, just the whole shebang. So I know that when I was more of a beginner producer, I would look at an arrangement like this and I'd be thinking, what the hell? How did they do this? It would just boggle my mind. Like, how could they possibly think of this many different automations and effects and chops and just tons of different stuff to throw into the beat? Now, obviously, to an advanced producer, this production is probably nothing. I've seen, productions that just look absolutely insane in comparison to this. But the difference between this and just like a simple trap beat that has like a 4-bar guitar loop on repeat for the whole thing and just drums is thinking about it in terms of a production rather than a beat. When I sat down to make this beat, I was not thinking about the vocals yet at all. I didn't even know what the vocals were going to sound like or what I was going to write to this. But what I did know, though, was I wanted a 6.5 minute long track, and I had this idea for how I was going to lay it out. I wanted there to be a really long intro right here, and you can see that's exactly what this is. There's no drum sounds. It takes a really long time for it to build up and for the beat to drop. Then once the beat dropped, I had this idea where I was like, okay, well, it's going to follow a chorus, verse, bridge, double chorus structure. And so that's exactly what I did. I made this 8-bar chorus. We have this 16-bar verse and then an 8-bar bridge followed by a 16-bar double chorus. And then I was thinking, all right, for the last, 2 minutes of the song, I want there to be a beat switch. I want everything to slow down, go at halftime, and start incorporating a lot of these really ambient synths. So that's exactly what I did. I made this 8-bar long transition from the original beat into the second beat. We have this 16-bar long guitar solo, and then we have another 16-bar long verse segment followed by a final outro. Now, thinking of it in this specific way may not be applicable to everybody because I have the luxury of producing for myself. I do not produce music for anyone besides myself. Like, I don't make beats and sell them to other people. Whenever I sit down to make a beat, it's with the intention of me eventually being able to write and record over it. So this really allows me to think, all right, well, I want to have like a rap verse in this first intro segment, and then I'll start singing throughout this entire main section, and then like a nice like rap verse at the end of the song. I'm able to think like that because I'm going to be the one recording vocals over it. If you're making a beat for another person, you kind of have to think about what that person's going to want and what they're going to want to do over the beat. So if you're able to actually communicate with the person that you're making the beat for, it's going to make the whole thing way easier because now you're able to still think of the beat as if it's an instrumental track. Create it with the intention of having the beat be as interesting as possible by itself. But you can do that while also tailoring it to the vocalist's desires. If you don't have the option of communicating with the vocalist, let's say you're just creating beats to sell online to random customers, then it gets a little bit trickier. In that case, you kind of have to look at the genre of music you're making and find a way to make the genre as interesting as possible. This is going to do two things. The first is it's going to make you stand out from your competitors. Everyone else is just taking a 4-bar like chord loop or a 4-bar melody, some loop they found in a cymatics pack, pasting it throughout the whole song, putting drums on it, and then just low passing it for the verse. Everyone and their mother is doing that. And although beats like that still do tend to sell, they're not selling to top level artists. Because a top level artist is going to hear that and think, oh, this beat was put together in like an hour by some guy in his bedroom. And generally, those kind of beats just aren't going to be as impactful for the ears as something that you really put a lot of time and effort into. But if you make each beat with the general idea of this has to be as interesting as possible without a vocalist, pretty much every time you're going to knock it out the ballpark. There's going to be some beats that you make that you don't like. I make beats all the time that I don't like and they just sit in a folder somewhere. I never end up up using them. But if I do like a beat enough to get to the arranging stage, then this is what we end up with because I put my all into it. I don't think, okay, this just needs to be a simple beat just for me to sell to some rapper. I think, all right, this needs to be a production. This needs to be something that's extremely palatable even without a vocalist. So let me demonstrate. Rather than just me sitting here rambling about like what you got to do to make your arrangements better, let me actually show you what I mean. You'll be able to hear all these different effects and automations in action. So I'm about to sit here and play this entire 32 bar intro for you guys, and I want you to just really listen to the different effects being used and the automations and how I'm using them to make it as interesting as possible, despite the fact that there's no drums, no vocals, all just melodies and effects. So you can clearly hear how crucial all these different effects and automations are to making this entire segment of the beat sound interesting. However, at the same time, it's not overly complex. And this is a trap you gotta avoid when you're trying to make beats like this. Now you could see, like, I have a whole bunch of tracks in this beat. It's not like a ton, you know, it's not like an EDM song or something. And clearly I do a lot of condensing. You know, I have a lot of effects and automations that are just condensed into the beat rather than given their own track. But despite all these different sounds I'm using and all of these different tracks that I have, there's only like 5 melodies being played throughout this entire intro, and most of them aren't being played at the same time. And this is what allows the beat to not be overly complex. I feel like you hear this a lot in the production world, that you gotta keep things simple, that you wanna keep things, you know, bare bones, that way the artist has room to breathe and they have, you know, the capability to make something that works for them over the beat. And if you were to make it too complex, then it would be too difficult for an artist to write to. I think this mindset to have is just extremely limiting. That mindset is how you make mediocre ass beats. All your beats are gonna sound lackluster if you're trying to make them simple. But at the same time, there is a such thing as overcomplexity. If I had every single one of these melodies and drum patterns playing at the same time, it would sound like dog shit. Nobody would ever like the beat, no one would ever want to work on it. I wouldn't want to work on it. There's a sweet spot that you have to find between too simple and too complex. And the only way you'll ever really be able to find that sweet spot is just through practice. With any activity that you're trying to improve in, you have to practice it to become better. But if you practice it the wrong way, you're going to become worse. So by continuing to make your beats simplistic and uninteresting, you're not going to really improve. So that's just the one mindset switch right there that's going to allow you to really improve your arrangements. Try to make the beat as interesting as possible to listen to with no vocals on it. And as you continue to do this for, you know, weeks and months and years, you're going to start coming up with new and more creative ways to make the beat interesting. When I first started trying to do this, I wasn't using as many automations as I am now. I wasn't using as many effects as I am now. Just over time, I started thinking like, oh, you know what would be cool? If I had this sound effect going on and I automated it, so that way it's only playing at this part of the beat where I think it would be cool. Being able to make those different arrangement decisions, it just takes time, it just takes practice. But stop limiting yourself. Stop thinking that all your beats need to be simplistic in order for rappers or singers to like them. It's not true. You want to make beats that are going to wow people. You want to make beats that are going to have rappers and songwriters and singers excited to work on it. Those are the kind of beats that are going to make you stand out amongst the crowd. Not just the typical, like, bare bones ass beat that anyone could throw together in their bedroom. So yeah, that's the video. You know, I didn't tell you any specific tricks, but that's like the one big mindset switch you have to make if you really want to start leveling up your arrangements. Hope you got something out of this video. Leave a like if you would like, and I will catch you next time. Foo.